Welcome back to my 3D anime character series. Previously I showed how to model the base body, hands and feet using core loops to establish good volume and typology within the mesh. This time I'll be constructing the face using a similar method, so without any more delays, let's jump head first into the video. To start, I've set up my face reference without the hair, so it isn't obscuring the shape of the head. If you don't know how to do this, I explained in the video where I made the base body, so click the top right now to find that video. I have a mirror modifier set up and I'm starting with a single plane at the tip of the nose. I will focus on the main features first, such as the nose, eye, mouth and ear, and then create a few guidelines, such as the jawline, that will help me fill out the rest of the volume afterward. To construct the nose, I'll create a few loops, the first of which is the section off the tip. I'll mark this in red. Next, a blue arc to mark the upper plane. That will help the geometry flow correctly for the shape. The yellow loop I'm adding is to match the red one, so it mostly serves as an easy way to fill out the geometry between them. From where the nose transitions into the upper lip, I'll create another line that reaches right up to the tip of the eyebrows, defining the overall outline for the rest of the nose. Now with these lines set up, it is a simple case of filling out these areas, adding a few loop cuts as I go. I add as many cuts as I feel necessary, however you may want to add in less. After I finished the head, I've spent a lot of time dissolving a lot of these edges to decrease the density of the mesh. This is because I later apply a subdivision modifier, which I'll talk about later in the video, so a heads up if you're following along, it may be worth putting far less detail than I do here. Anime character style noses are reminiscent of birds' beaks than actual noses. In fact, the face is generally quite pointy when made in 3D. This is necessary to allow the model to create the illusion of the hand-drawn style at multiple angles, while the cell shading hides its unusual shape. That is it for blocking out the nose. Next is to move on to the eye. The loop I create here is 16 faces, but you could probably use half of that and get the rough outline ready for subdivision later. From the eye, I can bridge into the nose and brow fairly easy and fill out the space. I'm now extruding out from the eye into the ear. I also extrude the loop marking the brow across to the top of it. I will extend this loop around the back of the ear later on. The ear can be a little tricky, and it also depends on the style you're trying to achieve. I believe characters in Honkai Star Rail and Genshin actually have a flat planed area and just use texture to add detail. Nonetheless, I'll be constructing it properly here, starting with a loop for the outside first. My ears are far from being anatomically correct and more of a stylized representation, so I'm basically going to highlight the higher areas first and fill out the rest from there. I'm marking a step in this bridge section that will create a loop all the way around the inside. What I've done here is hard to explain. I've created two rings around the inside, one to factor into the step I put in, the other to add height to the bridge itself. To prevent the loop from turning into a spiral, I've had to bridge the first loop over the top, creating this triangulated area. Now it's just a case of filling out and adding more loop cuts where necessary. By adding a loop here, I can shape the contour of the outer ear. You can hide faces with the H key. This is very useful for isolating areas to either cut or select loops easier. I used this technique here so I could select and extrude the back edge of the ear. To bring these hidden faces back, just hit Alt and H. From the ear, I add a loop down along the jawline. This won't go directly to the tip of the chin, instead it'll end underneath in a point. The second line marked in blue is to help establish the step in the jawline. This final one will act as a dividing line between the front of the face curving down to the tip of the chin. Next is onto the lips. First to create the general outline. My references don't exactly align very well here, so it's just a case of getting it as close as possible. At the ends I've got these quads to mark the corners of the mouth, so that I can extrude inward later. I ended up adding way too much detail here that I later dissolved. You'll see later that I triangulate a few faces around the outside of the mouth to connect it into the rest of the face. This is a valid technique for anime characters that use cell shading, and is used by some high profile developers like Arc System Works. This is because the area around the mouth will deform a lot with expressions, and if you have too much geometry, it can get some artifacting in the shading. This approach is considered bad practice with models that use diffuse shaders, as it makes for an ugly surface, so keep that in mind. With that said, I do eliminate the triangles I create, but I'll talk about that more at the end. Now that the outside is done, it's time to do the inside. This can be a little tricky to get right, but it's much easier if you have less geometry to work with. All you need to do is extrude in and try and shape the inner part of the lip. The difficult part is keeping the upper and lower edges from overlapping, creating a bit of a mess inside. Now with the general shape of all the features set up, it's on to filling out the rest of the face. This blue loop will mark the boundary where I'll be stepping down the typology of the lips. I'm extruding this face out around the eyebrow as I'm going to integrate them into the mesh. Alternatively, you can make them as a plane separate to the actual face mesh. Now is my least favourite part, constructing the top and back of the head and connecting it all into the neck. This neck loop matches the body at the moment, however I find there is too many faces to connect it into here. I will eventually halve the number of faces ready for a subdivision modifier later. You'll see I extrude the faces up and over the top at first, but I'll change my approach later. At the top of the head, I place a single vert and create a triangulated cap. The head geometry isn't that important as it will be hidden by the hair or masked out entirely. Fun fact. This is how Catalina's head is constructed in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. From here it's just a case of shaping and connecting everything, so I'll let the footage play out. I've skipped ahead here, so you'll notice a lot has changed. Next video, I'm going to make a shorter video showing how to construct the eyes and eyelashes, as this one's getting a little long already. You'll notice that the geometry of the face is much simpler. That is because I went back in and dissolved a lot of edges, reducing the geometry down and applying a subdivision modifier. The mouth no longer has any triangulated faces around it as a result too. These edges marked in purple are creases. These tell the subdivision modifier where to tighten up areas, bringing them closer to the original mesh. A subdivision modifier will quadruple your geometry after it is applied. This is less of a problem if you plan to render out your model in Blender for animation or images, but for games it's generally a good idea to optimize your triangle count. What I've done here is go in and dissolve edges that weren't necessary to defining the shape, to try and get the count as low as possible without sacrificing the detail. Unfortunately, I didn't record the process, but if people want a separate video demonstrating this, let me know in the comments. In fact, leave one if you found this video helpful, and maybe leave a like while you're at it. After the eyes, I'll probably be covering texturing and shading, so don't miss out. Subscribe so you can see the rest of the process. A special thanks to my patrons that support me over on Patreon. I release all videos there early, so if you want to help support me, the link is in the description and on the screen now. So far, I've shown how I've created the reference, body, hands and feet, and you can get the full playlist by clicking here. And if you want to do none of that, would you kindly bugger off?
Maybe.